For many years, there has been skepticism concerning nuclear energy in the world. Many experts believe that nuclear energy has the potential to significantly address the energy challenges faced by many African nations. It is believed to be a reliable and low carbon source of energy. Here to discuss the key points about nuclear energy in Africa is Miss Ruth Achieng. Ruth, it's an honor and privilege to have you on our podcast today. You are welcome.
Thank you, Kofi. Yes, I'll introduce myself again. My name is Ruth Achieng. I'm an engineer working for the government, and I work at the Nuclear Power and Energy Agency as a civil engineer. So my background, my bachelor's degree is in civil engineering, while I have a master's in nuclear science and technology.
Yeah, so you do have a lengthy background, and I'm glad that you just kind of summarize it for us. And I know you also got involved in some of the mostly Nuclear Society of Kenya.
Yes.
You're a founding member. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Yes. So the Nuclear Society of Kenya was launched last year in October, and it's a society that brings together all kinds of professionals. That is from the medical sector, agricultural sector, academic sector, energy sector, so long as you have a nuclear background or you're studying sciences and look forward to coming into the nuclear sector. It is a platform that brings together such cohort of people. And I am one of the founding members. Once we launched it, we were able to recruit so many members, not just from Kenya, but all over the world. And I'm in charge of recruitment and communications for the society.
That's good. Do you see a lot of participation from Africans within Africa?
Yes. There's a lot of members who have joined from countries such as Ghana, Nigeria, and South Africa. And aside from that, we also have members from Austria, Vienna. Most of them work for the IAEA. Therefore, we interact a lot, and they were able to know of our existence. We also have the American Nuclear Society, which is the overall chapter. So we are trying to come in under them, the American Nuclear Society, the Korean Nuclear Society. So it's not just in Kenya. There's an umbrella body that we are trying to work under and also emulate.
That's an interesting bio you have. But apart from the technical aspect, is there anything else that you would like us to know about you?
Yes, Kofi. I'm also a mother to two lovely boys, an 11-year-old boy and a 9-year-old boy. Aside from that, I'm a very serious businesswoman. I can sell anything. And currently on the side, I'm selling electronics, I'm selling beauty products. And some of these things, I come with them from my travels, my training travels. Some I buy in the country and sell to my friends and relatives. Yeah, and I also like mentorship. I do a lot of mentorship through the nuclear societies in schools. I mentor my own relatives, and I'm also a mentee. So these are some of the things I do on the side, apart from the technical aspects.
Yeah, that's very impressive. And I've seen your work and read about your work, also mentoring young ladies in various fields, also just trying to show a picture of that. Hey, this is a lady who has done it in the nuclear industry, so you can be whatever, we can do whatever you want to be.
Yes.
And I do appreciate all that work that you put in to mentor, especially our young ladies coming
generation.
up. Keep up the great work.
Thank you, Kofi.
Yeah, that's very impressive. Yeah. So coming back to nuclear energy, many people think about it as a hidden powerhouse. In simple terms for our audience, what would you describe nuclear energy and how does it work on a high level?
All right. So nuclear energy is like any other form of energy, except how it is produced. And the reason why it has a lot of controversy is because of the radiation factor. It's an energy reaction that produces radiation, and radiation has several health effects. However, in terms of its energy production, it's very beneficial. Also in terms of low greenhouse emissions, in terms of energy security, reliability, and even the low cost of operation of nuclear power plants.
Okay, all right, that's good. So tailoring it back to Africa in particular, I read that South Africa and Egypt have operating nuclear plants. I think one is Quebec, a facility in South Africa, and then there's one in Egypt. Are there other countries in Africa that currently operate nuclear plants?
Yes. Actually, nuclear power plants are gaining popularity in Africa, and this is because Africa is looking to diversify its energy mix. We are highly dependent on renewable energies, that is solar, hydro, geothermal. Like in Kenya, we have very large deposits of geothermal resources. However, as we look to diversify as the African continent, we are still called the dark continent, and it's for a reason. We are not producing enough power for our consumers. And as we go forward, we are also looking at combating climate change, reducing greenhouse gases. So nuclear power comes in as a very reliable source that fits in to meet the climate change aspects and also diversify our energy mix. And South Africa has the only operating power plant in Africa. They have 2 twin power plants in Coburg, producing a net output of about 1,854 megawatts. And they started operation way back in 1984. And they've run for 20 years, which was their lifetime. They are now going through a process called extension of life for another 20 years. And they're also looking to expand their energy mix using nuclear again. So they want to also expand more nuclear power, about 2,000 megawatts extra to make it 4,000 megawatts, because South Africa, we know, is facing several serious energy issues.
Yeah. So obviously, I mean, you did touch some basis on some of the things, but obviously implementing of nuclear facilities have significant challenges such as capital resources and also, as you mentioned, public safety concerns. Another aspect too is the strict regulatory structure and maybe a lack of technical expertise as well. Has the perception changed about nuclear energy and for it particularly in Africa?
Well, these challenges are not just faced in Africa, they're faced all over the world. For example, there are nuclear power plants being built by France for the UK. And this particular power plant has extended its construction period. The cost has also more than tripled. And so things like financing remain a core issue for nuclear power plants. They have a very high capital. However, the operating cost is very low, but the overnight capital cost is very high. So this remains one of the challenges in Africa, where we have a debt crisis already. We have high taxes. So looking at financing from a point of loaning from Exim banks is one of the solutions that we are looking at. But there are other challenges, yes. Where do we get our human resources? This is a very foreign technology developed by the big countries such as USA, China, South Korea, and Russia. And therefore, importing this technology comes with importing of the technical knowledge. And in Africa, we have really not embraced nuclear science, nuclear engineering in our universities, meaning that we have to import this knowledge or send our people outside to learn and come back with the knowledge for knowledge transfer. And also another way that most countries are looking at it, once the contractors come in, they're expected as one of the clauses that is signed into contract to enable knowledge transfer and technology transfer, so that at some point we go from technological dependence to full technological independence, to a point where we can also design our own reactors or reverse engineer the reactors that come in and produce our own technology. Other issues like regulatory development, yes, it's a rigorous process. This is a highly stringent environment that considers safety as the key issue. And this is because of the release of radiation in case of an accident. And therefore, the regulatory process has to be very strict. The licensing process for construction, even for operation, there are a lot of safety measures that have to be given a go-ahead before a nuclear reactor is launched for commissioning. So the regulatory process is quite stringent and therefore cannot be done haphazardly. Otherwise, safety is compromised.
Okay.
Yeah, and we're also looking at other issues, such as building confidence in the public. The African setup is rife with corruption. Our governments are not operating at optimum, and there are many issues, even dealing with waste. The normal waste is already an issue. So you get questions from the public, such as, how will you deal with nuclear waste if you cannot deal with the normal household waste, Yeah. So such issues they come up, and there are issues we have to deal with if we have to deploy nuclear energy. Yeah.
So I would assume there is a lot of international cooperation with organizations such as the International Atomic Energy Agency, right, IAEA, to ensure the safe and responsible implementation of the nuclear energy in our in the world as at large, but also to manage the waste disposal. So, in a layman's sense, how do you dispose of the waste from nuclear energy?
So currently, the policy that most countries are adhering to is at reactor storage. So we have two types of storage. You can either store it at the reactor location or away from the reactor location. And at the reactor location, we have the containment building, which houses the nuclear reactor. So this containment building is built in such a way that it contains the radiation within it. And therefore, there's a pool that is called a spent fuel pool, where the spent fuel is placed, and it is within this containment building. Therefore, radiation leakage is not compromised. And it can stay there for as long as the reactor is in operation, which goes to about 60 to 80 years currently. And once there's decommissioning and this reactor is shut down, then we now consider the away from reactor storage. And in the away from reactor storage, we consider deep geological repositories. These are dug deep down the earth, several kilometers down, and such sites have to undergo a rigorous siting process because they have to be away from the population. They also have to be in an area that is not seismically active to avoid any compromise to the storage materials. So such deep geological repositories, that is how we call them technically, are one of the permanent measures on how to store the waste. But currently, most reactors have their waste stored at the reactor site and within the containment building.
Nice. All right. So, and also you did mention other benefits of nuclear energy, such as in food and agriculture, in the preservation of food, also enhancing crop yields. How can nuclear energy be beneficial in medicine? Because I did read something about medical applications in the cancer treatment and diagnostic imaging as well.
Yes. Yeah, so we call it, let's not call it nuclear energy, but rather nuclear technologies.
Okay.
Energy is one of the applications. So nuclear technologies can be applied in several aspects. And in this, one of these aspects is healthcare. And in healthcare, we have nuclear medicine, where radiotherapy is used to treat cancer patients. And also in imaging and diagnostics, you've heard of something called PET scans?
Yes.
Yeah. So the positron emission tomography is a process whereby some radio tracers are inserted in your body, and the radiation it emits is able to tell whether you have cancerous cells or not, depending on the rate of division of cells in your body. And also CT scans, the computed tomography, is also another form of medical imaging. So nuclear medicine is such an important part of cancer treatment and diagnosis that is in the healthcare center.
All right. So also there have been debates on nuclear energy in the production of electricity, right? Being the safest, cleanest, and most reliable source of electricity. Do you subscribe to that?
Yes, I do. And probably I need to take you through the process of nuclear energy production for you to understand really how it happens. So a nuclear energy plant is a thermal power plant that is similar to the normal thermal power plants that use coal and oil and gas. The only difference is in the containment site that has the nuclear reactor, where we expect a lot of radiation due to the reaction of nuclear fuel in a reaction that we call fission reaction. So the fission reaction that takes place, that is when a neutron bombards a uranium atom. Uranium is the fuel that is used in nuclear power plants. So when this neutron bombards a uranium atom and produces energy, this energy is what is used to heat water into steam. The steam is then used to turn a turbine, and the turbine turns a generator. The generator produces electricity. So the only difference with the conventional power plants is that the nuclear island, or rather the primary side where you find the heating happening, is is a containment building that has specialized kind of construction. It has steel liner plates, lead. The concrete wall is thick, even up to a point of 1 meter. So there are several depths of defense that are applied to avoid radiation leakage outside of the reactor. Also, the way the loops are built, the steam loop and how it reacts with the turbine building, because there's the turbine island side of generation of the electricity. So the way it's built, it's such a way that radiation is not allowed to contaminate the turbine side. So this radiation is generally contained within the building. And you find that people living around a nuclear power plant, they get up to about we use a metric called millisievert to measure radiation dose. And you find that the population around a nuclear power plant, let's say 1 kilometer to 5 to 10 kilometers, they only receive about 0.01 millisievert. Well, naturally, we have natural background radiation from the sun, cosmic rays. From the earth itself, we have natural elements such as thorium and uranium that produce natural radiation. We get about 2.4 millisievert per year. But living around a nuclear power plant, you only receive 0.001 millisievert. A pilot flying a plane receives 0.1 millisievert. A person undergoing an X-ray imaging receives 0.1 millisievert. So look at it that way, just in context for comparison, that the amount of radiation you receive around a nuclear power plant is not that high, because it is controlled and it is contained within the building, unless an accident happens and compromises that building.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow. Thanks for that explanation. So I know you did speak about the pros and cons of nuclear energy. Thank you for actually presenting a balanced perspective on the benefits and drawbacks of the nuclear power. Where do you see Africa with nuclear energy in the future?
Yeah, there's been a lot of plans to deploy nuclear power. And one of the reasons Africa is looking at nuclear power is for industrial growth. Another reason Africa is looking at nuclear power is to reduce cost of power. For example, in Kenya, we pay very, very high costs of power. So that is one of the reasons. And the third reason is to combat climate change, because nuclear power has one of the lowest greenhouse gas emissions as compared to other energy sources. And governments have been cognizant of these factors. And I can assure you that countries like Kenya, Ghana, Nigeria, Rwanda, and Uganda are very serious about their nuclear power deployment and introducing nuclear into their energy mix. Yeah. And some of the countries have made a lot of progress. For example, Ghana, they've started the bidding process. They've already issued out their request for information and received very overwhelming responses, and are looking to deploy their nuclear energy very near in the future, around early 2030s. Same to Kenya. Kenya will look to commission our first nuclear power plant by 2034. Meaning that we are now preparing for bidding by 2027 and breaking ground soon thereafter. Countries like Ghana have even gone ahead and gone into partnerships and cooperations with the USA, and they're deploying a nuclear reactor called NuScale. It's a small modular reactor, meaning it's between 300 and 600 megawatts. And they've even already launched a simulator that is used to train their students, the energy professionals. They already have this in their country. So Ghana has made significant progress. South Africa is already operating and is looking at extension of life and even increasing their nuclear energy mix by adding about 2,000 megawatts. Egypt is doing very well. Egypt already signed a contract with Rosatom of Russia, and they have already broken ground and are building 4 reactors, each about 1,200 megawatts, producing a total of about 4,800 megawatts to add to their energy mix. So there's been a lot of progress in Africa, and this is not just in energy. There is a reactor called the research reactor. A research reactor is not used for energy production, but rather for other uses such as producing radioisotopes, which are used for medical purposes, industrial purposes, And there are already countries operating research reactors. And actually, these countries are using the research reactors to build human resource in preparation for the energy reactors. So such countries are like Morocco, Algeria, Nigeria. Yes, these countries already have research reactors. Kenya is also looking to deploy one, and we've already finished a feasibility study for the research reactor. It's actually ahead of our nuclear power plant deployment plans. Yeah, so that is the two ways that Africa is looking at it, either to deploy research reactors or nuclear power plants, or both.
Okay. So, so how would electric production look like? Is it gonna be a combination of the various generation sources, like the hydro, the nuclear, and then also the thermal? Is that how it's gonna look like, or there is the drive just towards maintaining nuclear generation?
Actually, we commonly say this in Kenya, that nuclear power is coming in as a complementary source of energy.
Okay.
It is not coming in to replace any source of energy. And the reason nuclear is being considered, one of the reasons is that it produces baseload power. It's a very stable power that can produce baseload power for all peak and non-peak hours, just like coal. So while we are phasing out coal in terms of climate change, the only source of power that can complement what coal can do is nuclear power. The other renewable sources are intermittent. They have low capacity factors. Nuclear energy has a very high capacity factor, which is generally the power output. You receive it at least 92% of the time. While renewable sources like solar has less than 30% capacity factor. You only get it in the daytime. At night, you have to use battery storage, which also has some issues in terms of. Yeah. So one of the sources that is key in producing baseload power is definitely nuclear energy.
Wow, that's very impressive, and thank you very much. So I always like to use this platform to highlight the many good things happening in the world, particularly in Africa, and to use people's stories to uplift and empower others. What is your final uplifting story for people who have or intend to give up on Africa and move somewhere else in the world?
Yeah, what I can say is that Africa, we are rich. We are rich, and we are rich in resources. We are rich in what can I say? All sorts of resources, be it natural resources, be it human resources. So let's look inside. Let's look inside. Let's stop looking outside. And if it comes to going outside, go get the knowledge, bring it back and apply it in your country. Because if you put up the map of the world and insert it into the map of Africa, you'll find that half the world fits into Africa.
Absolutely.
So Africa is the world. Yeah, just Google comparison of Africa and you'll see it. Africa fits half the world. Yeah. We have the resources. We have everything that we need here. So I'd encourage Africans and all the future generations that let's exploit the wealth that we have and not look outside.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Ruth, for making time and sharing your insights in the key points about nuclear energy in the world, particularly in Africa. I believe it will go a long way to help change people's perspective about nuclear energy and uses the pros and cons for the better. It was an absolute honor and pleasure to have you as my special guest on this podcast. I hope to bring you back to this platform to discuss another topic soon.
Okay, thank you, Kofi. I've tried very much not to be technical and use jargon.
That's absolutely fine.
Yeah, so I hope it's quite clear to your audience.
Yes, it is. And remember, nuclear energy is a powerful, clean source of energy that holds the potential of eliminating our future with sustainable energy. Let's embrace it. To our listeners, to our listeners, a big thank you for staying tuned with us. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Uplift Chronicles, and please leave us your feedback on our social media platform. We are on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and others. Thank you and goodbye for now. This is Kofi Dake.
Goodbye. Goodbye.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Uplift Chronicles. I hope you found inspiration in today's stories and the spirit of upliftment. Remember, Every life has the power to inspire change, and every story is a thread in the rich tapestry of our shared heritage. If you enjoyed this episode, kindly subscribe and leave a review, and share it with someone who could use a little upliftment in their life. Follow us on social media for more updates and join the conversation. Until next time, keep uplifting and stay inspired. Signing off, this is Kofi Dake.